Welcome to English Story Hub. Learn English through fun stories. Improve vocabulary, listening, and speaking skills. Like, subscribe, and keep learning with us. Chapter 1. The Girl and the Spider. Peter Parker lived next door to Mary Jane Watson, MJ. They went to the same school. Peter liked MJ a lot, but he never told her. She already had a boyfriend. His name was Flash. He was good-looking and he was the school's top football player. One day their class went to the Columbia Genetic Research Institute. Peter was late. He ran behind the bus, then at last it stopped. He was red and hot and everyone laughed at him. As Peter walked down the bus, Flash put his foot out. Peter crashed to the floor. Everyone laughed louder. The bus arrived at the institute. Harry Osborn wasn't on the bus. He arrived in a big car, a Rolls-Royce, with his father and a driver. Harry was new to the school and he wasn't good at science. Peter was fantastic at science, and he often helped Harry. They were good friends. "Peter, this is my father," said Harry. "Ah, the great scientist," said Norman Osborn. "I'm a scientist too." "Your mother and father must be happy," said Mr. Osborn. "I live with Uncle Ben and Aunt May," said Peter. "Yes, they are happy." "Hey, you two," called the teacher, "let's go." A woman took the class to see some spiders. "There are 32,000 different spiders in the world," she said, "and these 15 spiders are special. We took the best bits from 3 different spiders and put them together." "There are only 14, said MJ. "Oh," said the woman. "Maybe someone is doing some work on number 15. Peter took some photos of MJ with the spiders for the school newspaper. "Oh, what was that?" he thought. The back of his hand was red. And there on the floor was a spider. The spider. Spider number 15. "Parker, let's go," said the teacher. Chapter 2. The Special Gas. Norman Osborn arrived at Oscorp. Important buyers were there that day. First they looked at Osborn's new glider. The glider worked beautifully. But the buyers didn't want the glider. They asked questions about Oscorp's special gas. "It makes you very, very strong," said Dr. Strom, Osborn's top scientist. "But it can also make you very angry and crazy," he said. "We need more tests." "The gas must be ready in 2 weeks," said the buyers. "We need it then." Norman Osborn and Dr. Strom were at Oscorp late that evening. "I'm going to test the gas. It must work." "No, Mr. Osborn," said Strom. "The gas isn't ready yet. Give me 2 more weeks." "2 weeks is too late," said Osborn. "Just start it when I'm ready." Osborn went into a special room. Strom closed the doors after him and started the gas. Soon there was green gas everywhere in the room. Osborn tried to shout. Strom stopped the gas. But it was too late. Osborn was dead. Strom ran into the room. Suddenly Osborn's eyes opened. He was a different man now. His body was very strong. And he was very angry. He took Strom in his hands. In seconds Strom was dead. Peter had a terrible night. When he woke up, he thought, "Am I dead?" Slowly he started to move. "No," he said, "I feel fantastic." His body was beautiful and very strong. He looked across the room. "I can see much better too." This was a new Peter Parker. Later that day Peter was in the lunchroom at school. MJ sat with Flash a few tables behind Peter. "My hands feel different," Peter thought. He looked closer at his right hand. Suddenly, a line of spider webbing shot from his hand across the room. It shot onto some food on the next table. Peter watched the food fly across the room. It hit Flash. He turned and saw Peter. "Parker!" Peter ran out of the lunchroom, but Flash followed him. Peter turned. Flash tried to hit him, but Peter moved too quickly. Flash tried again and again to hit Peter. Then Peter hit Flash. And he hit him right across the room. Peter ran out of the school. He went down a street between two tall buildings. He wanted to test his new body. He went up a wall. He went higher and higher. At the top, he looked down at the road with its little cars. Then he ran and jumped from building to building. Hoo-hoo, he shouted. He stopped on one building. Now, he thought, I'm going to try this spider webbing. He put his hands in front of him and looked at the building opposite. At first, nothing happened. Then long lines of strong webbing shot from his hands. He took a line of the webbing and jumped. Woohoo! Now I can fly. Peter came home late that night. He heard shouts from MJ's house. He went into the garden. MJ's back door opened. MJ walked into her garden and saw Peter. Did you hear that? She asked. No. Well, I heard something. You can always hear us, right? Then she smiled. So school finishes soon. What's next for you? I want to live in Manhattan. I want to be a photographer. What about you? Yeah, I'm going to live in the city too. I want a job on Broadway. You were great in all those school plays. I cried when you were Cinderella, he said. Peter! We were 6 then. A car stopped in front of MJ's house. It was new and cool, and it was Flash's car. MJ put on her party girl face and ran to the car. Chapter 3. The Worst Day. Peter thought a lot about MJ and about Flash's car. He wanted a cool car, too. The next evening, Peter ran to the front door. He had some things in a bag. I'm going into town. I want to finish some schoolwork, he called. Wait, said Uncle Ben. Let's go in the car. Uncle Ben stopped the car. Thanks for the ride, smiled Peter. Let's talk, said Uncle Ben. I haven't got time right now. That fight you had at school with Flash. I didn't start the fight, said Peter. I know, said Uncle Ben. But this is an important time. You're changing into a man. Be careful, Peter. With great power comes great responsibility. Peter was angry. He opened the car door. I know I'm not your father, said Uncle Ben. No, you're not, shouted Peter. Uncle Ben went quiet. See you here at 10 o'clock, he said. Sadly, Peter watched Uncle Ben's car drive away. Peter walked across the street to an old building. He went in and walked into a big room. There were many people there. They watched a fight with 2 men. One of the men was very big and ugly. His name was Bonesaw McGraw. He jumped on top of the other man, and the fight was over. A few crazy people wanted to fight Bonesaw for money. Peter wanted to fight him, too. He needed the money. He took a costume and mask out of his bag. $3,000 for 3 minutes with Bonesaw, a man shouted. Let's hear a big shout for our next fighter. The man looked at Peter's costume, red and blue with spider webs. For SpiderMan. Everyone looked at Peter and laughed. Bonesaw had crazy eyes and a terrible smile. He was big and very strong. The fight started. When Bonesaw tried to hit Peter, Peter jumped right over him. Then Bonesaw hit Peter with a chair and Peter hit the floor. Then Peter jumped up and hit Bonesaw. He knocked him out. Everybody shouted and laughed. They loved it. After the fight, Peter went for his money. The man gave him $100. $100? said Peter. It's $3,000. Not $100. It's $3,000 for 3 minutes. Your fight was only 2 minutes. I need that money, said Peter. Not my problem, said the man. Peter walked away angrily. Then there was a shout behind him. Hey! Stop that man! He's got my money. A man with white hair ran to a door and out of the building. Why didn't you stop him? The man asked Peter. Not my problem, said Peter. A few minutes later, Peter was in the street. Some people were around the body of a man. Peter walked through the people. He saw Uncle Ben on the road. What happened? asked Peter. "It's my Uncle Ben. Someone shot this old man and took his car," said a woman. Peter looked at the body. "Uncle Ben," he cried. "Uncle Ben!" Uncle Ben opened his eyes. "Very quietly," he said, "Peter. And then he died. We can see the car. It's on 5th Avenue, said the police radio. Peter ran between two buildings. He put on his costume. He went up one of the buildings. He used his webbing and jumped from building to building. Very soon he was on 5th Avenue. Then he saw Uncle Ben's car. He jumped on top of it. Smash! He put his hand through the front window. "Aff!" cried the driver and crashed the car. Peter followed the driver into a dark old building. Peter had the man in his hands. The man turned to the light and Peter saw his face. It was the man from the Bonesaw fight, the man with white hair. It was the worst day of Peter's life. Chapter 4. An Old Life Ends. Life was quiet after Uncle Ben died. Peter and Harry worked hard at school and soon their last year was over. Everyone's family came to school on the last day. "Good news, Peter," Harry said. "My dad bought a flat for me in Manhattan. And there's a room for you." "That's great," said Peter. Then Harry's father arrived. "You did it," Mr. Osborne said to Harry. He was a little surprised but also very happy. "Good work." Then he turned to Peter. "And Peter, the best science student in the school. That's fantastic." Mr. Osborne looked at Peter. "Life isn't easy for you right now," he said. "Try to enjoy the day. It's the start of something new." Then he smiled. "You're almost a brother to Harry. That makes you family?" Peter smiled back. But he was frightened. His spider sense saw something terrible in Mr. Osborne's eyes. Harry saw MJ and Flash. MJ didn't look happy. Flash looked very angry. Then Flash walked away. "It's over for MJ and Flash," thought Harry. Good. Later that day, Peter sat quietly at home. He thought about Uncle Ben and he started to cry. Then he remembered Uncle Ben's words. "With great power comes great responsibility." Something in Peter woke up. "I'm strong," he thought. "And I'm a good person. I must help other people." Uncle Ben was right. Chapter 5. A New Life Starts. SpiderMan worked very hard. Every day terrible things happened in New York. Every day SpiderMan helped people. Soon, SpiderMan was big news in New York. All the newspapers had stories about him. But who was he? No one knew. A few weeks later, Peter walked alone through the streets of Manhattan. Suddenly, he saw MJ come out of a restaurant. "Hi, MJ," he called. "Hi," she smiled. "What are you doing around here?" "I'm looking for a job," he answered. "What about you?" I'm working on Broadway now," she said. "Hey, that's great, MJ. You're living your dream." But then a man came out of the restaurant. The man was angry with MJ. The day's money wasn't right, $6 wasn't there. MJ shouted back at the man, then she turned to Peter. "Some dream," she said. "I work here. There are worse jobs." "Don't tell Harry," she said. "Harry? We're going out," she said. "Didn't he tell you?" "Oh, yeah? Right," he said. MJ turned to go. "Let's get together again sometime," she smiled. And then she left. Back at the flat, Peter was very sad. He didn't have a job and MJ was Harry's girlfriend now. Then he saw the front of the Daily Bugle newspaper. $$ for photos of Spider-Man. Peter smiled. "I know just the right man for the job," he thought.